This session looked at next-generation WAN services and how the carriers could monetize them. It was introduced by Erin Dunne of the Vertical Systems Group, who set the scene before introducing the panel and setting them some questions.
First of all, we hear about the TDM market, the emerging fiber market, the Ethernet market, all that kind of stuff. It's all out there. There's still 2 million T1s out there in the US. You know those little, the 1.5 ones that like my Fitbit takes up the entire bit of bandwidth? Like, there's still 2 million of them out there. And the growth of them is flat, meaning that for everyone that gets disconnected, someone else makes a decision to install a T1 still. And the reason is because that's what they can get. And they have to connect. So that's the first. Second of all, you got Ethernet, you got VPNs, you got all those kind of stuff, layer 2, layer 3, you name it, and it's growing fast. There's lots of bandwidth out there, and that's growing fast. And so we need networks that can take care of that. So you're going to hear from our panel about these emerging networks, SDN, SD-WAN, if that is truly the way we're going to go. I think so. You're going to hope so, right? Yeah. And we're also going to hear from Glenn about some interesting newer style digital cities and digital metros, which I think is very interesting. So that's where we're going to start. So what I want to do is have each of them spend a moment, who you are, what you do, and what your company or association does. So why don't we start with Glenn? And I also want to make sure that Mike, at the end, because I did have a couple of discussions with some folks, he's also going to hit and spend a little bit of time on what an SD-WAN is. Actually, both of the mics can do that, and why they're important to us. So let's start with Glenn.
After Glenn Ricart of USIgnite had briefly introduced himself, Mike Kozlowski of Windstream Enterprise talked about his company's approach to SD-WANs, followed by Mike Wood of VeloCloud Networks.
Just one perspective on SD-WAN, and I'm sure Mike's going to be pretty excited about this. We view this as definitely a solution that's going to take hold in the market. I think it's pretty clear there's good investment that's happening. We view it as an enrichment of the existing VPNs. As Erin mentioned, there's access technologies that are present throughout the US, and there's technologies that are coming online, such as 5G. There's a huge presence of DSL that our customers can take advantage of through our assets as well as partners. And we see this as a way to enrich the existing VPN experience to meet some of the kind of the target solutions that our customers are trying to grow into. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. That's about it. So right. We'll hit some of the other points later.
Oh yeah, we got the questions for you, don't worry.
Yeah.
So I'm Mike Wood, I'm VP of Marketing for VeloCloud Networks. VeloCloud is the cloud-delivered SD-WAN company. We were founded back in 2012 with the mission of producing an SD-WAN solution for both enterprises and service providers, and that's what we do today. SD-WAN, I would say, probably has 5 components to it. The first is that SD-WAN is really an overlay technology, a WAN technology, that allows businesses, enterprises, and service providers to literally use broadband internet as an enterprise class wide area network. So this is probably the first order piece. That overlay, though, must incorporate a business's existing wide area network. So if it happens to be a CenturyLink MPLS network that's running out to each of the sites, it should be able to incorporate that also, and that's why carriers are also very interested in working with VeloCloud on SD-WAN. Secondarily, SD-WAN really drives down the cost of what is traditionally considered to be wide area networking, and it does this in a number of ways. One way is that it leverages more commodity type hardware, so think x86 based hardware in each branch office location that can really reduce the costs away from more customized hardware, customized routers. In addition to that, the idea of being zero touch and having automation built in so that there's very little to no IT expertise that's needed out at branch offices. So it's, I'd say, a second piece to all this. Third piece to SD-WAN is really bringing the cloud, incorporating that into being part of the network. VeloCloud believes that the cloud is the network, and cloud services, cloud applications, cloud storage are becoming more pervasive now, and businesses, enterprises absolutely must be able to take control, deliver performance and quality and reliability for those applications as part of their wide area network. So, that'd be probably a third piece. A fourth piece is all about business policy, the ability to take business policy and abstract that at a very high level, at an orchestration level, and have that propagate down into the network, and be able to move away from things like classes of service and diff-serve code points, all the complexities that we've been faced with in the past around deploying wide area networking, and really driving the quality of service, quality of experience based on the applications that are important to you and traversing that network. The last piece, the fifth piece.
Number 5.
Number 5, thank you. Number 5, thank you.
In case you're losing count.
Is really SD-WAN needs to have true multi-tenancy, and that's why folks like Windstream and others are very focused on deploying these type of technologies, because they need to be able to support thousands or tens of thousands of customers like Windstream has today.
Right.
Erin Dunne then asked the panelists what their customers were looking for. Kozlowski said his customers, typically mid-sized companies, wanted reliable managed networks with good visibility, along with reduced cost and more bandwidth. After a further brief discussion, the panel went on to talk about digital cities, starting with Glenn Ricart.
We're working with a number of cities to really take what they're talking about in terms of software-defined WANs within a city and interconnect them with each other. So if you're on all Windstream, or if you're all on AT&T or something, you have a pretty good product. It works pretty well. These folks are doing a fantastic job with that. While we're software defining it, can we software define an interconnect between carriers, and to do that within a city? So our model is kind of the Chamber of Commerce, or maybe the Rotary Club, the people who work together for the benefit of the city. Can we bring the healthcare providers together in the city? Can we provide the education institutions, which may be signed up with different local access providers, together within the city? So we're looking at a way of having a software-defined city interconnect, and we call that the digital town square. The digital town square is where the town's digital economy meets in that city. You don't have to go off to some other city and some peering point in the internet. It stays within the city. That means the city is self-contained, it's more resilient, it is keeping its digital traffic, it's keeping its capabilities in the tech domain local, and it's providing for a real meshing between the people in that city and the technology that serves them. And we think that this is going to be very important in the Internet of Things, and as things go forward, to be able to have this digital town square where everyone can exchange that local traffic. And it's good for the long-distance carriers as well, because they would like to get rid of the traffic that's off net as soon as possible.
Sure.
Which means in the same city where it originated. And they would also like to deliver traffic at the last point. Everyone who wants to receive traffic wants to receive it at the last chance possible, which is in that city. So by having the digital town square in that city, we make all the tier 1 carriers happy, and we have an ecosystem of the local carriers that is going to be much more robust and resilient.
There followed questions from the floor, including one about how widespread SD-WANs are globally.
Yeah, it certainly seems that in North America, there's been, a sense of urgency in deploying SD-WAN in particular. The next region of the world that seems to be hot on its tails is Asia Pacific, and that entire region. You've got to sort of remember that there's a bit of a model here where a lot of times traditional WAN, wide area networking, can be relatively expensive depending on where you are because of the last mile access. So Asia Pacific, we're seeing even more of an arbitrage there. And then I would say Europe and Middle East and Africa, are following. But in terms of partnerships, that's been the order that of.
Do you think it's because of the growth rates of those economies? I mean, the areas which seem to be doing this are areas where the economies are growing the quickest, and I think probably making investments the first.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. Certainly, definitely North America, and then even Asia Pacific. I think also there's an interest in driving down the costs for them, also, which is, I think it's a balance between both. And then certainly Europe is, there's some things going on there that are, maybe making this not as compelling immediately right now, but it's
It's only a matter of timing, right?
absolutely.
Right.
Only a matter of timing. Everyone will go that way.
Is there another question somewhere before I?
Hi,
Tony.
Tony Chan from Comstate out of Australia. I have a question for Mike from Windstream. In terms of your adoption of SDN and the fact that you're selling it to your customers, what is the kind of, there's obvious cannibalization between that and your traditional MPLS service. If you have a customer, when you approach a customer, would you rather sell them an MPLS circuit, or would you rather sell them SD-WAN on maybe somebody else's broadband connection?
Yeah, great question.
That's a great question. That's going to segue into how do we make money?
That's right.
I think it does, yeah.
So just philosophically, we're going to always do what's best for the customer, because ultimately that's where they'll go anyway, right? So the way we view SD-WAN is we're a private networking company. We make investments in private assets and we get returns. We put higher layer services on them and we sell it to the mid-market, right? That's the formulaic equation that we go with. We view that SD-WAN is going to be a way to enrich both the public and the private networking services within our portfolio. And we're going to allow our customers basically to drive us to the best solutions that meet their need. Now, I'll jump ahead now because Erin's going to ask the question of how are you seeing it in the verticals and how is it playing out? We see certain customers that put a high emphasis on costs, right? Those are typically coming out right now, and at least are early adopters that are driving the business around retail, where they have kind of fixed overhead, fixed costs. They need to compress their expenses to meet the margin requirements for their companies. And we're gonna work with those customers to make sure that they have the right solution that meets their needs. As I think Mike mentioned earlier, those are, the perfect application is, or actually it was Erin. Erin mentioned earlier the office that she works in. It's like, I view that as almost like a remote office, where customers, you have employees in the office, you are running maybe some just basic office applications, but not the critical stuff that that requires the private networking solution. So for those remote offices, maybe those diverse internet pairs that you mentioned and aggregating it with an SD-WAN, and that's the right solution. It provides enough diversity, it provides enough reliability, it provides enough remote management for where the centralized resources are to kind of watch it and make sure it's healthy. Now there's other applications where you're going to be connecting to a data center, you're going to be running high volume, you need a low latency, even lower latency than what SD-WAN can provide, and that's where there's going to be nodes on the ring that are going to be more intended for fiber, and that kind of plays out in various mixes among verticals and risk tolerances of how they're looking at it, as well as security requirements if you're running HIPAA or PCI traffic across that LAN. So it's kind of like, the best way to say it is we're going to let our customers drive us to the solution, because ultimately they're going to get there anyway, but we think it's going to be a mix based on the applications that the customers are trying to solve.
Right.
And with that, Erin Dunne wrapped up the session.